Hi, thank you so much for joining me in the Louis File. Today we're going to look at Leviticus chapter 16, and we're going to see how the scapegoat story, the lamb, a couple of lambs actually, or rams, how this depiction, how this atonement ritual, or whatever you want to call it, was foreshadowing, was showing us something. Now that we can see Christ crucified, dead, buried, and raised back, we can see that he was. You can see him in this story when we look back. I don't know that anybody would have seen the man Jesus back in those days being the fulfillment of this. I'm not going to say they didn't, but I think it's fascinating that we can look back and see it now. So the last video I did was how do we become the temples and expressors of Christ. And I think it is an amazing video. It came out well. I think that is based on 2 Corinthians 5:21, where God made Christ, who knew no sin, to become sin so we could become the righteousness of God in him. So there's this transfer of our sin to him and his righteousness to us. So it's not enough. It's not just forgiveness that gets us into heaven. We have to be righteous. We have to be made right with God. And it's not just forgiveness. It's not just cleaning our slate or getting forgiveness for past bad decisions or behaviors. That's only part of the equation. The other part is we have to become righteous. Somehow we have to be made righteous. And according to the scripture, it's only a gift. It's only by faith in Christ that we are righteous. So, without further ado, let's look at Leviticus 16, verses 5 through 28. It's going to be a lot of reading here, but I think it's good to read it all, and then we'll go back and kind of poke around through it. Leviticus 16, verse 5 says, "He shall take from the congregation of the sons of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Then Aaron shall offer the bull for the sin offering, which is for himself, that he may make atonement for himself and for his household. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the doorway of the tent of meeting. Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one for the lot for the Lord, the other lot for the scapegoat. Then Aaron shall offer the goat on which the lot for the Lord fell, and make it a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot for the scapegoat fell shall be presented alive before the Lord, to make atonement upon it, to send it into the wilderness as the scapegoat. Then Aaron shall offer the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his household. And he shall slaughter the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. He shall take a fire pan full of coals of fire from upon the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground sweet incense, and bring it inside the veil. He shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the ark of the testimony, otherwise he will die." Wow. "Moreover, he shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the mercy seat on the east side. Also in front of the mercy seat he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Then he shall slaughter the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil, and do with its blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the mercy seat and in front of the mercy seat. He shall make atonement for the holy place because of the impurities of the sons of Israel, and because of their transgressions in regard to all their sins. And thus he shall do for the tent of meeting, which abides with them in the midst of their impurities. When he goes in to make atonement in the holy place, no one shall be in the tent of meeting until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself and for his household and for all the assembly of Israel. Then he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord, and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the blood of the goat, and put it on the horns of the altar on all sides. With his finger he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it 7 times, and cleanse it, and from the impurities of the sons of Israel consecrate it. When he finishes atoning for the holy place, and the tent of meeting, and the altar, he shall offer the live goat. Then Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat, and confess over it all the iniquities of the sons of Israel, and all their transgressions in regard to all their sins. And he shall lay them on the head of the goat, and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man who stands in readiness. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to a solitary land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness. Then Aaron shall come into the tent of meeting, and take off the linen garments which he put on when he went into the holy place, and shall leave them there. He shall bathe his body with water in a holy place, and put on his clothes, and come forth and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people. Then he shall offer up in smoke the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The one who released the goat as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. Then afterward he shall come into the camp. But the bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the holy place, shall be taken outside the camp, and they shall burn their hides in their flesh and their refuse in the fire. Then the one who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. Then afterward he shall come into the camp. Wow, so specific. It's one thing about the Old Testament, Leviticus, the laws and stuff. God is very specific on how to go about doing this. All right, so Aaron, as a priest, he's not sinless. He's got his own stuff going on, and his own family's got their own stuff, and then the whole nation of Israel's got their stuff, or sin, right? So everyone's sins have to be atoned for. So it's very prescriptive about how Aaron is to make a sacrifice for his family, and then you got to deal with Israel's stuff. So we have several animals dying here. My main takeaway on this is I wanted to mainly focus on the scapegoat aspect. So let's look in Leviticus 16, verse 10. It says, that the goat on which the lot for the scapegoat fell shall be presented alive before the Lord, to make atonement upon it, to send it into the wilderness as the scapegoat. So, this one is not killed, it's not sacrificed, it's sent alive out into the wilderness, driven away. Okay, so Israel is encamped wherever they're encamped at the moment, right? And I mean, if they're in the desert, they're moving around. But during this time of atonement, sacrifices and the work that Aaron has to do, they're in a camp. He's doing this, he's performing this ritual. We see where he puts his hands, let's see, Leviticus 16, 20 and 21. It says, when he finishes atoning for the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall offer the live goat. Then Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities of the sons of Israel and all their transgressions in regard to all their sins. And he shall lay them on the head of the goat and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man who stands in readiness. So Aaron is like the Christ figure. He's the priest guy here, and he's transferring the sins of the people onto this scapegoat, and then he's going to push it out of the camp, out into utter darkness, out into wicked land. If you're in the desert, I mean, the desert, it's a description of an ungodly or unholy place, the place where darkness and death and poisonous vipers and scorpions and fear and anxiety and just darkness and shadows. It's a place you don't want to be. Outside the camp, you don't want to be there. But I want you to notice, I want to bring up one little point here. In my Bible, in Leviticus 16:8, it says, Aaron shall cast lots for the two goats, one lot for the Lord, the other lot for the scapegoat. So the one, obviously, is killed, slaughtered, the blood is sprinkled all over, and it's offered as an atonement for Aaron and for the family and all that. The other one is a scapegoat. Now, my Bible actually has a little A beside the word scapegoat, which means there's a note, and you go down here and it says, goat of removal. And then it says, or else a name. And it says Azazel. A-Z-A-Z-E-L. Wow. So the word translated in our Bible, scapegoat, means goat of removal, or could just be a name, Azazel. This goat of removal, now that makes sense. You put the sin on the goat and then you send it out. It removes the sin from the camp. And it goes out not just away from the camp, but into the darkness, into the ungodly place, into the place that God isn't, if you will. Azazel, just an interesting thought here about the word Azazel. As a side note, in the book of Enoch, I'm not trying to push the book of Enoch on anyone, but it's just an interesting thought here. Azazel is named as one of the watchers, one of the rebellious sons of God that plotted to procreate with earthly women, and they, and he was one of the head rebels there that was going to engage in all types of unlawful things, teaching mankind the art of war and the art of painting your eyelids, the art of seduction, the art of digging roots, creating drugs and or medication, spell casting. All of this type of stuff, according to Enoch, came from Azazel and his cohorts. So if you think about the scapegoat as being Azazel, and you think about Aaron, he's putting the sins of the people, of the nation, the disobedience, the transgressions, onto Azazel. He's putting it onto the scapegoat, and he's driving it out. Could this be symbolic in some way that the sins are not only being dealt with and taken care of off of or out of the people in this way, but they're actually being sent home? They're being sent back to the source, the origin, the place that they came from. So Azazel and the Watchers, the rebellious sons of God, plotted to teach man all types of rebellious behaviors, and this is the way that God, through Aaron, is going to cleanse us, cleanse the nation of Israel, going to clear them. It's not to say that Israel that they're not participating or that they're not guilty. But God is providing a way not only to get the sin out of them, but back where it goes. The guilt, the transgressions, the pain and disobedience and all that goes back out into the utter darkness to the scapegoat, to Azazel. Amazing. So in Leviticus 16, 11 through 19, Aaron offers this goat for himself and the people. And then verse 20, it says, I just read that, when he finishes atoning for the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall offer the live goat. Wow. So he lays his hands on it, confesses over it the sins of the people, and he's sending it back where it came from, if you want to put it that way. Now let's jump ahead into the New Testament for a minute in the letter or the book of Hebrews. Hebrews 7, verses 23 through 27. Now it says, now this is under the idea or the point being made that Jesus is a high priest that's way better than the Old Testament or Old Covenant version of priest. And so Hebrews 7:23 through 27 says, the former priest, like Aaron there, on the one hand existed in greater numbers because they were prevented by death from continuing. But Jesus, on the other hand, because he continues forever, holds his priesthood permanently. Therefore, he is able also to save forever those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. For it was fitting for us to have such a high priest, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens, who does not need daily, like those high priests, to offer up sacrifices first for his own sins and then for the sins of the people, because this he did once for all when he offered up himself. So that system that we saw described in Leviticus 16 of Aaron going through all this ritual and sprinkling of all the blood, if you look throughout the letter or the book of Hebrews, you see where the author of Hebrews is comparing that whole system to Jesus being greater. So here we have Jesus. The Bible describes him as our great high priest forever. He ever lives to intercede for us. He doesn't have to offer up blood and sacrifices for himself. In fact, there's another place, which right now I'm not sure if I remember the chapter and verse, but there's another place in Hebrews where it says that they entered into the holy place that was of the earth, a tabernacle made by hands, but he entered into heaven, an everlasting eternal tabernacle that was not made by hands. And they entered by animal blood once a year. He entered to heaven with his own blood once and for all. Oh man. So Jesus fulfills this picture in Leviticus 16. He is the sacrificial animal, the lamb that was providing atonement for Aaron, his family, and the nation. And he's also the scapegoat. He's both. it takes two animals to demonstrate this, because there's more than one thing going on with the cross. Jesus, it says in 2 Corinthians 5:21, God made him, Jesus, who knew no sin, to be made sin. So he became the scapegoat so that we could be made the righteousness of God in him. So there's another aspect of this that we didn't touch on really, but the priest would have to inspect these sheep, these lambs. And the idea is that they couldn't have a broke leg, they couldn't have eye disease, they couldn't have mange or skin rashes or any kind of trauma or defect. The best that the priest could analyze, you had to check this. You keep the lamb, you look at it, you inspect it, and then you say, you know what, this lamb is perfect. So you take this perfect lamb and you sacrifice it on behalf of the sinful people. So the sin is transferred onto the scapegoat, or the two. I hope you're following what I'm saying. So the sin is transferred onto the one, and the perfection is transferred onto the worshiper. That's the idea. That's the symbolism in the Old Testament. Christ, who knew no sin, the perfect lamb, became sin. And I said this in the last video, and you really ought to check that out. How do we become temples? Because these really kind of go together. Jesus became sin because we who had the wrong, sinful, rebellious spirit in us were joined with him in his cross, in the death and burial. So this would be symbolically shown to us through the scapegoat. The laying on of the hands puts the sin on the scapegoat, and then the scapegoats ran off. Well, Jesus was crucified and died. He went into the utter darkness, if you will, in the grave, right? And we with him. Then he comes out because it wasn't his sin. Wasn't his sin to begin with. The grave, death, hell, the grave, Satan, they didn't have a right to him. And God's plan is that if we are joined to him, then the spirit of rebellion and sin that was in us is taken care of, left in that grave, if you will. But we get to come out with him, holy and blameless and righteous. And the perfection of the Lamb is transferred to us. He became sin so we could become righteous. I hope this has helped you. I hope this is clear. I hope I've said enough about this. Thank you so much. I really enjoy being able to share this with you, and it helps me to get things clarified in my own mind as I do it. So I hope this helps. I'll see you next time on the Louis File.